Welcome back, you magnificent, indomitable forces of chaos and resilience. Yes, you, the ones who endured the suffocating weight of silence for far too long, who swallowed your words like bitter medicine, who bit your tongues until they bled, and who played the role of the obedient, the compliant, the good one, while they methodically dismantled you, piece by piece, with their words and their whispers, and their carefully constructed illusions of superiority. You are the ones who finally reached the breaking point, the moment when the dam of your patience could no longer hold back the flood of your truth. And in that moment, you spoke. It might have been just one line, one sentence, one exquisitely crafted, razor-sharp retort that cut through the facade of their smiles and shattered the fragile illusion of control they had spent so long constructing. But that one line was not merely words. It was a spark, a catalyst, a detonation that set fire to everything they had built to keep you beneath them. Let us pause and truly understand what unfolded here, because this is not merely about a verbal exchange or a fleeting moment of defiance. This is about awakening, about the moment when a sleeping giant, someone who had been pushed to the edges, someone who had been forced to shrink themselves, finally opened their eyes and declared, with a voice that trembled not with fear, but with the weight of their own power, "Enough." For months, perhaps even years, you watched them. You observed the way they gossiped, the way they manipulated, the way they gaslit not just you but each other, all while hiding behind the safety of their numbers, convinced that their collective cruelty made them untouchable. They mistook your silence for weakness, your patience for submission, your stillness for defeat. But you were never weak. You were never defeated. You were studying. You were mapping the terrain of their lies, the contradictions in their stories, the fragile egos they masked as confidence. You saw the cracks in their armor long before they ever suspected their vulnerability. And when the moment arrived, the moment when they pushed you just a little too far, when their arrogance blinded them to the danger of underestimating you, you delivered that one line with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. It wasn't loud, it wasn't emotional, it was simply the truth, sharp and undeniable, and it landed with the force of a revelation. And in that instant, the world shifted. The air in the room grew heavier, colder, as if the very atmosphere had been altered by the weight of what you had just exposed. You could see it in their eyes, that flicker of panic, that dawning realization that they had misjudged you, that they had chosen the wrong person to underestimate. Your words didn't just strike one of them, they struck all of them. They exposed the lie they had all been pretending to believe, the weakness they had all been hiding behind their united front. This is where the beauty of your defiance truly begins to unfold, where your single sentence becomes the pebble that starts the avalanche, the match that ignites the gasoline. Groups like theirs are never held together by loyalty or love or genuine connection. They are held together by a shared target, by the need for a villain to justify their own cruelty, by the illusion that their strength lies in numbers rather than in integrity. They needed you to be the problem so they could feel like the solution. They needed you to be silent so their lies could echo unchallenged. But you broke that pattern. You spoke, and in doing so, you didn't just defend yourself. You held up a mirror, and for the first time, they were forced to see themselves. Now, the real unraveling begins. The alliances they thought were unbreakable are fracturing. The group chats that once buzzed with coordinated attacks against you have fallen silent, then exploded into a storm of accusations, defenses, and desperate attempts to regain control. Your one line didn't just defend you, it exposed the rot at the core of their unity. Suddenly, the person standing next to them isn't an ally anymore. They're a potential threat. The whispers that once targeted you have turned inward. The knives they sharpened for your back, now finding new targets among themselves. They are questioning each other, turning on each other, scrambling to offload the guilt and reposition themselves as the good ones in a story that is rapidly unraveling. The ringleader, the one who orchestrated it all, is making desperate plays to regain control, but every move only makes them look weaker. Every accusation only makes them seem more guilty. They created this situation themselves. Every cruel word, every lie, every person they recruited to their cause, it all became the foundation of their own destruction. And you were merely the catalyst, the match that revealed how flammable their lies always were. So what happens next? This is where most people get confused. They think this chain reaction means they've won, that now they can go back and reclaim their place in the group, that now the apologies will come and everything will be fine. But no, that's not how this works. This isn't a story of reconciliation. You don't want them back. You shouldn't want them back. People who spent months or years treating you like garbage don't suddenly become trustworthy because their coalition collapsed. The ones reaching out now, the ones trying to rebuild bridges, aren't doing it because they've had a change of heart. They're doing it because they're scared. Scared of being alone. Scared of being the next target. Scared that without the group, they are nothing. Let them feel that fear. Let them experience the isolation and doubt they inflicted on you. Because here's the truth. They are only now beginning to understand what you already survived. You walked through their fire and came out stronger. But them? They can't survive what they created. They need the group, the validation, the constant reinforcement that they're good people. Without it, they crumble. Your one line didn't just start a civil war among them. It freed you. It cut the last cord tying you to their opinion of you, to their version of your story. The moment you spoke up, the moment you stopped caring whether they liked you or accepted you, you became untouchable. Not because you're perfect, not because you're above hurt, but because their weapons no longer work on you. Their gossip, their exclusion, their judgment, it all lost its power the second you stopped giving it power. Now they're the ones obsessing. They're the ones checking your social media, wondering what you're thinking, whether you're watching their self-destruction with satisfaction or indifference. They're the ones who can't move on, because they built so much of their identity around opposing you. And now that you're no longer playing the role they assigned you, now that you're no longer the villain in their story, they don't know who they are anymore. So what do you do now? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. This is the part where you master the art of absence. You don't gloat. You don't send messages. You don't subtly reference the chaos in your posts. You don't give them anything to analyze, to twist, to use as evidence that you're still thinking about them. Because you're not. You're building something new, something better, something that has nothing to do with them. This is your season of radical self-focus, of reclaiming the energy you once wasted on their drama and redirecting it toward your own growth. While they're drowning in the consequences of their own making, you're learning, creating, connecting with people who actually see you, who value you, who treat you with the respect you always deserved. You're discovering that life without their toxicity is lighter, brighter, more peaceful than you ever imagined. You're realizing that their rejection wasn't a loss. It was a redirection, a push towards something infinitely better. Every day you spend thriving in your new reality is another day they spend trapped in theirs. Every moment you invest in your own growth is a moment they waste trying to repair relationships built on lies. Every genuine connection you make is a reminder that their cruelty was never normal, never acceptable, never something you had to tolerate. Your one line was the beginning of your freedom. But your silence now, your refusal to engage, your commitment to moving forward without them, that is how you ensure this chain reaction doesn't pull you back in. because they will try. When the dust settles and they realize what they've lost, some of them will reach out. They'll test the waters with casual messages, inside jokes, invitations to reconnect. Don't bite. Remember what they revealed about themselves, not in their moment of apology, but in their months of cruelty. People don't change that fast. They're not reaching out because they've grown. They're reaching out because their social circle imploded, and they're desperate for any connection that feels familiar. You are not a backup plan. You are not a nostalgia trip. You are not their redemption arc. Let's talk about the long game, because this is where your power becomes permanent. Right now, they're in chaos. Friendships are ending. Accusations are flying. Everyone is trying to figure out who they can trust, and it's messy and dramatic and consuming all their energy. But eventually, the dust will settle. Some of them will reconcile. Some will form new alliances. Some will drift apart forever. And when that happens, they'll all remember one thing. You, the one who started it all with a single sentence. The one who saw through their act when they thought they were invisible. The one who had the courage to speak when they expected eternal silence. You'll become a legend in their memory, not as a villain, but as a warning. A reminder that cruelty has consequences, that lies eventually crumble, that underestimating the quiet one is always, always a mistake. Years from now, they'll tell stories about you, maybe to new friends, maybe to therapists, maybe just to themselves in moments of late-night reflection. They'll remember your line word for word. They'll remember the look on your face when you said it. They'll remember the feeling of their carefully constructed reality cracking apart. And they'll wonder what you're doing now, whether you ever think about them, whether you forgave them. But you won't care, because by then, you'll be so far beyond that chapter of your life that it will feel like a story that happened to someone else. You'll have new friends who treat you with respect, new experiences that remind you what genuine connection feels like, new successes that prove you never needed their validation to be worthy. You'll be living proof that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's indifference. It's moving on so completely that their drama, their chaos, their very existence becomes irrelevant to the story of your life. And that, more than anything, is the ultimate victory. But for now, in this moment, as you watch their civil war unfold, watch as the alliances they swore were unbreakable splinter into fragments, as the group chats that once buzzed with coordinated cruelty fall silent, then erupt into a storm of accusations and betrayals. Let yourself feel the deep, quiet satisfaction. Not the satisfaction of seeing them suffer, but the satisfaction of being proven right. You always knew their unity was a facade, a house of cards built on shared lies and the flimsy glue of a common target. You always knew their cruelty revealed far more about their own insecurities than it ever did about your worth. You always knew that truth, no matter how buried, would eventually claw its way to the surface. Your comeback line didn't create the truth. It simply accelerated its arrival, forcing it into the light, where it could no longer be ignored or denied. They thought they could break you into silence forever. They believed that if they just pushed hard enough, if they chipped away at you with enough relentless cruelty, you would eventually disappear, apologize, accept their warped version of reality, shrink yourself to fit the mold they'd carved for you. But they were wrong. You didn't break. You didn't disappear. You spoke. And your words, that one perfectly crafted comeback, did more damage to the structure of their power than all their combined efforts ever did to you. Their entire system was built on the assumption that you would remain silent, that you would continue to absorb their poison without ever pushing back. The moment you shattered that assumption, you didn't just defend yourself, You exposed the fragility of everything they had constructed. Their unity, their control, their carefully curated image of strength. It all crumbled because it was never real to begin with. Now, let's turn our attention to the people watching from the sidelines, because your comeback didn't just affect your tormentors. It reverberated through everyone who witnessed it. The silent observers, the ones who watched you get torn apart and did nothing, who felt the discomfort gnawing at them but were too afraid to risk becoming the next target. The ones who secretly admired your resilience but lacked the courage to show it. Your comeback gave them something too. Permission. Permission to speak up, to question the toxic dynamics they'd been complicit in, to step away from the poison without drowning in guilt. You became an example, not by setting out to be one, but simply by refusing to stay silent any longer. And that ripple effect, that quiet revolution of conscience, is even more powerful than the immediate chaos you unleashed. People are paying attention now, not just to the drama, but to you, to how you handled it, and how you're handling it now. They're watching to see if you'll stay calm or lose control, if you'll gloat or move on, if you'll let this moment define you or use it as a launching pad for something greater. Every day you choose dignity over drama, growth over revenge, peace over chaos. You're teaching them something profound. You're showing them that strength doesn't look like cruelty. It looks like boundaries. It looks like self-respect. It looks like walking away and never looking back. So when you feel the temptation to engage, to explain yourself, to rub their noses in the mess they've made, remember this. You're not just making choices for yourself. You're setting an example for everyone who has ever felt small, silenced, or suffocated by the weight of group dynamics. You're proving that one person's truth can dismantle 100 people's lies. You're demonstrating that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to fight on their terms, and instead exist powerfully, unapologetically, in your own right. Your comeback line was the spark, the moment that ignited the fire. But your continued evolution, your refusal to be dragged back into their chaos, your unwavering commitment to building a life that no longer includes them, that is the fire that keeps burning long after the initial explosion. That is what truly terrifies them. Not what you said, but who you're becoming. Someone who doesn't need them. Someone who thrives without them. Someone who has seen through the illusion of their power and can never unsee it. That's the gift your one comeback gave you. Clarity. The ability to see them exactly as they are, stripped of all the intimidation, manipulation, and false authority. They're just people. Insecure, petty, desperate people who found temporary power in numbers and cruelty. Nothing special, nothing scary, nothing worth sacrificing your peace for. So what happens next? This is where the real transformation begins. Not just for them, but for you. The moment you spoke up, you didn't just expose their fragility. You shattered the chains that had bound you to their narrative, their expectations, and their toxic cycle. Now, as you stand on the other side of that explosion, you're faced with a choice. Do you linger in the ashes of their collapse, or do you step forward into the life you were always meant to live? The truth is, their chaos is no longer your concern. The alliances they're scrambling to rebuild, the apologies they might eventually offer, the desperate attempts to pull you back into their world, none of it matters. Because you've already outgrown them. You've already proven to yourself that their opinions, their judgments, and their cruelty no longer define you. This is your moment to reclaim your power, not by engaging in their drama, but by turning your back on it entirely. This is your opportunity to build a life that is untouched by their toxicity, a life where your worth isn't measured by their approval or their rejection. As they continue to spiral, as they turn on each other and scramble to salvage what's left of their crumbling world, you have the chance to do something far more revolutionary. You have the chance to heal, not just from the wounds they inflicted, but from the belief that you ever needed their validation in the first place. You get to rediscover who you are outside of their narrative, outside of their cruelty, outside of the role they tried to force you into. You get to decide what comes next, not as a reaction to them, but as a creation of your own design. This is where your story truly begins. The fire you ignited didn't just burn their lies. It illuminated a path forward for you, one that leads away from their chaos and towards something brighter, something real. The relationships you build now will be with people who see you, who respect you, who don't demand that you shrink to make them feel bigger. The life you create will be one where your voice isn't just heard, it's celebrated. Where your boundaries aren't just respected, they're honored. Where your presence isn't just tolerated, it's cherished. And as for them, let them stay in the wreckage they created. Let them learn the lessons they refused to learn when it mattered. Let them grapple with the consequences of their actions, while you focus on the only thing that truly matters now, you. Because the most powerful thing you can do isn't to watch them burn. It's to walk away and never look back. It's to build a life so full of joy, purpose, and genuine connection that their existence becomes nothing more than a distant memory, a footnote in the story of who you were before you became who you were always meant to be. This is your time, not to prove anything to them, but to prove everything to yourself. You are not what they made you feel. You are not what they tried to reduce you to. You are so much more than their cruelty could ever comprehend. And now, finally, you are free to live like it. If this resonated with you, if you've ever felt silenced, underestimated, or pushed to the edge, this is your sign to rise. But don't just take my word for it. Hit that like button if you're ready to reclaim your power. Subscribe and join a community that refuses to stay silent, that chooses growth over gossip, and that turns pain into purpose. And if you're serious about building a life they never saw coming, become a YouTube member. Because together, we're not just watching the chaos unfold, we're creating the comeback. Drop a comment below. What's the one line you wish you'd said? Let's turn those unsaid words into fuel. Now go. And remember, your story doesn't end with their cruelty. It begins with your courage.